The same drive that built your career or your business is keeping you stuck with belly fat. You work hard, you're disciplined, and yet the mirror doesn't reflect that. And after 9 years of coaching busy men, I've seen this over and over. Guys get stuck at 20% body fat or above. They're not underworking, they're overdoing it. And if you don't adjust, you stall, burn out, and then rebound. So I'll show you why doing less actually burns more belly fat and exactly what to fix, starting with the thing that traps most successful men. Ambition is great to build a career and a business, but it quietly sabotages your body transformation. Because when progress stalls, what do most high-performing men do? They start pushing harder, another workout, longer runs, restricting foods, which works when you're heavier at 25% body fat or above. Literally anything is going to work. But around 20% and below, that approach starts to backfire. And if you're already stressed from work, life, poor sleep, and all that, then stacking harder training on top of a harsher deficit is just going to drive more systemic stress higher. And when your stress rises, your sleep gets worse, hunger spikes up, and progress is going to slow down. I'm talking about the overachiever trap, when you're doing everything right, but the scale barely moves. And once you know what actually shifts around this 20% body fat, you'll see why doing more stops working and why most men get stuck right there. So what actually changes around 20% body fat? Well, when you're carrying more body fat, the body is more forgiving. You cut sugar, train a few times a week, and you lose weight. Easy. But after that first 5 to 10 to 20 pounds, things change. Not in some magical way, just mechanically, because your metabolism has 4 main parts. Your BMR, which is what you're going to burn at rest, your NEAT, which is all the unconscious movement that you don't think about doing, your EAT, which is your exercise activity, and your TF, which is the energy to digest the food that you eat. And so as you lose weight, your BMR drops slightly due to being lighter and fitter. Then when you're dieting, your body subconsciously moves less because there's less energy going in. And if your stress is high and your sleep sucks, your body is leaning more toward that protecting its energy. So you fidget less, you sit more, you speak less, your hormones can also dip, and you start to feel more hungry and tired, which drops your NEAT slightly. It still exists, but it's kind of small. Protein increases it slightly, but alone it will not get you into a deficit. So even though you can try harder, your total energy burn for the day can stagnate or even slightly decline. And that's why guys hover at that 20% for potentially years. And if you keep pushing harder instead of doing it smarter, your body will eventually push back, which is why the smartest shift is actually taking a reverse approach that I'll explain next. So if a medication works at 10 milligrams, taking 40 milligrams doesn't make it work 4 times better. It just increases the side effects. So with your diet and your training, guys who get stuck often took a maximum dose approach, like going from 0 to 100 overnight, changing every meal, buying a Peloton, joining the gym, everything at once. Instead of asking, what is the smallest dose that will get results? Instead of 5 to 6 workouts a week, what if 3 done properly would get you results? Progressively loading the main lifts so that you're getting stronger, not just more tired and fatigued. Instead of cutting your grocery list in half, what if you use a moderate deficit so you can still eat dinners with the family, lunches with clients or colleagues, friends, and still enjoy the odd dessert or snack? But this approach requires something that most men are avoiding. That is patience and precision. See, fat loss is just a process. It doesn't matter if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s. You can still transform your shape, but it's not going to happen in 6 weeks. But the minimum effective dose reduces stress. It gives you more time to rest and enjoy your life. And this is why I still eat dark chocolate every single day, because the dosage is right for me. That said, people completely misunderstand their daily calorie burn, and it's secretly keeping them stuck around 20% body fat. People think they can't lose fat unless they're smashing workouts, but that is not true. A typical gym session might burn 150 to 300 calories. That's like a protein shake and a banana. And if you're not training every single day, then you're not getting all that extra burn anyway. So aside from your BMR, the biggest driver of your daily metabolic burn rate is going to be your NEAT. This is your walking, talking, standing up, sitting down, typing, fidgeting, tapping your feet, hand gestures, stuff that you do without really being conscious of it. And do that for 16 hours a day. Now, if you've got a sedentary job, like me in an office, your NEAT is going to be lower. But instead of adding brutal cardio sessions, this is where the low intensity cardio comes in. 10 to 20 minutes in the morning, 10 to 20 minutes at lunch, 10 to 20 minutes before or after dinner of casual walking. That is an extra 30 to 60 minutes without actually needing a gym. And done consistently, it's going to offset the natural drop in movement that happens in a deficit. But it doesn't help if one day you're doing 2 hours of running and then 2 days of nothing, right? Consistency sustains that steady burn for your deficit. And this is why the 10,000 steps a day is a very solid foundation, not in one hit, but kind of spread across. And speaking of cardio, there is one unexpected trap that men fall into that makes fat loss so much harder. I've known many people who are super fit, who can run and cycle for hours, but anyone would look at them and think, you know what, they look overweight. Which is confusing because some guys can run for like 30 kilometers, 20 miles a week or more, but they're still in that 20 to 25% body fat range for years. So what's actually going on? From what I've seen, there are a few things. Firstly, long endurance sessions spike hunger. So burning 600 calories, then unconsciously eating most of that back or beyond. If your nutrition isn't structured, this is going to be a problem. The second thing is that when cardio volume gets super high, especially when you're in a deficit, metabolism will start to compensate. Like I said before, the NEAT will down-regulate when you're not exercising. So less unconscious movement outside of training. The third thing is stacking intense long cardio on top of stress and poor sleep is going to keep cortisol elevated. Then your recovery suffers, fatigue builds up, and if you prioritize endurance over your strength training, you're going to risk losing muscle. Less muscle means a lower BMR. However, starvation mode doesn't really exist, but chronic stress absolutely slows down your progress. So for busy men over 30, making endurance the priority rarely leads to smooth, low stress fat loss goals. It's very hard to build muscle and train like an endurance athlete at the same time. It's better to prioritize phases, build your muscle, get lean first, then you can maintain that muscle later while doing your endurance cardio that you love to do, right? And speaking of extreme things, you need to avoid this next trap. So what happens if a company sacks 70% of their staff overnight? Now, the profits might look good for a month or two, but long term, the company's growth is going to be killed. So, in relation to extreme diets, if you cut 70% of your diet, weight will drop fast, but then hunger spikes, energy crashes, and the binge effect kicks in. Then eventually, you're back to where you started. The fact is, losing 2 pounds or 1 kilo per week is much harder than losing 1 pound or half a kilo per week. Fat loss is very simple. Burn slightly more than what you're actually consuming consistently, and body fat has to drop, right? So you only need a slight deficit, roughly 500 to 600 calorie deficit, to lose about half a kilo or 1 pound per week. That is sustainable. That gives you more food, flexibility, and energy to stay on track, to get lean. But here's the mistake. Most men think that their watch says they burn 3,000 calories, so they can eat 2,500 calories and they're in a deficit. But that's not how it works. The only proof that you're in a deficit is if your body fat is actually dropping and you need to take progress photos consistently in the same consistent lighting to see and confirm that you're actually losing body fat. And if you're not in deficit, then you need to make this next adjustment regardless of what you do. So when people get serious about fat loss, they typically change everything all at once. A new breakfast, new lunches, snacks, new routines, new grocery list, and it feels very productive for a couple of weeks until life bites back at you. However, the problem usually isn't that all of their food before was terrible. But the problem is that there was no structure and the random meals just wiped out all the consistency. So getting to 15% body fat or below is not about exotic meal plans, but just really making it easy to eat right daily. Simplify and systemize. 2 solid lunch options you can rotate. 4 to 5 dinners that you know fit your calories. Consistent breakfast or even skipping it if that suits you. Protein as the priority and controlled portions. Not cutting out everything, but also not blindly indulging either. Predictable meals create predictable results, removes daily decision fatigue and temptations at the worst times. And then if you need to go eat out or you have an event on, it's very easy to plan ahead. And that's what allows a moderate deficit to actually work for months instead of just a couple of weeks. And the thing is, if you can't follow a diet for the long term, it's never going to work. And many guys are making the same mistake with their strength and their muscle gains, which I'll explain next. It sounds logical that more workouts per week means you're going to get better results. But that's not necessarily true. Here's some proof. Researcher Brad Schoenfeld published a 2019 meta-analysis on training frequency and muscle growth. And the key finding was that when total volume was equated, meaning sets and reps spread across more or fewer days was the same, higher frequency did not meaningfully improve hypertrophy, which is muscle growth. So it's not that doing more workouts matters most. It's that it's the total quality work that you can actually recover from. And this is where your MRV comes in, your maximum recoverable volume. And if you're a busy guy in a deficit, not sleeping perfectly, stressed from work and life and priorities, your MRV is going to be lower than you think. So adding more sessions in can hit your ceiling and progress eventually slows down, or it could even start to reverse. When you drop the volume a little bit, less workout days, something that you can actually recover from, strength often improves. It's like taking 1 step back to go 2 steps forward. And then maintaining strength in a deficit is one of the best signs you're actually preserving muscle. And this is why I only lift 3 days a week. It gives me 4 days to rest and enjoy life so that every workout I do is progressive. It also gives flexibility for work, family, and travel. It doesn't become overbearing. However, once you find that sweet spot, there's a little trap that catches many guys out and that completely derails their results long term. So most people don't get wealthy from one big deposit, but from consistent contributions that compound over the long term, right? It's not exciting and it can be very boring. Fat loss works pretty much the same way. 3 lifts, 3 workouts a week, 8 to 10,000 steps a day, consistent protein and a calorie deficit, and sleep routine. No extreme detoxes or diets or David Goggins style workouts, just effective habits, but it starts to feel very boring. This is why guys abandon it before the results start to compound. Though, when you repeat the simple stuff for 16, 20, 24 weeks and beyond, that is where the real transformation happens. If it's boring, that is actually a good sign. But your transformation won't be complete without this last shift I'm going to explain. The author of Atomic Habits, James Clear, said, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." So your goal might be to get to that 15 to 30% body fat range. But if your system is extreme dieting, random workouts, and burnout cycles, that's like taking 1 step forward to go 2 steps back over and over, and you can stay stuck there for years in these all or nothing cycles, or you can do it right once and for all. This shift isn't about motivation or being the guy who pushes the hardest. It's about becoming the guy who executes consistently, like being the CEO of your body, treating it like a business with systems. Because once you reach that 13 to 15% body fat, you will have the habits and the structure that actually got you there, and you won't ever need random diets and crazy plans ever again because you're in control of your own system. If you want help building that system around your schedule, my metabolic recomp method is built for busy men who want to get lean and stay lean. You can work with me one-to-one for accountability and complete structure. Link is in the description to learn more. Then go watch this video next on why the lower belly fat is so hard to lose.